What I don't think people don't realise is that even under today's demand scenario, we can't supply the market through primary production.
Mm-hmm.
It has survived on the overproduction from the 60s, 70s, and 80s during the Cold War.
Hello, and welcome to TSN's ASX Investor Podcast, StockTales. I'm your host, Russell Katz. All thoughts, opinions, and analysis expressed on this show should not be used as an excuse to not do your own research, because remember, nobody ever made any money being lazy. A more detailed disclaimer is available at the end of the show. But for now, let's dive into today's episode featuring Jonathan from Cauldron Energy, ticker code CXU. Cauldron Energy is a mineral exploration and resource development company focused on the Yanrey Uranium Project in northern Western Australia. Cauldron Energy recently completed a capital raise at a premium, yes, I know, in this market, and has significant drill plans for the remainder of 2024. Here to tell us all about it is the company's CEO, Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome to StockTales.
Thanks, Russ. Great to be here, mate.
So your stock has been one of the best performing explorers recently. Now, I know you're in the uranium space, but uranium hasn't been rallying that hard. What's been going on? Why are people so excited about your company specifically?
Oh, yeah, look, it's nice to get that feedback. Look, there's a number of factors. It's easier to outperform, obviously, when the industry is running. But yeah, we've outperformed the broader uranium market. Couple of things. Look, we were a special situation, right? So we were a recap about a year ago, and fair to say that the company had been previously run into the ground and got to a very low market cap. So part of that is me just marketing, turning a few things around at the company and marketing and getting back to where we should be. So that was some of that outperformance.
Mm-hmm.
And the next bit of outperformance is simply people actually now really understanding what a cracking project we have at Yanrey, and how big it's going to be.
Yeah, so before we kind of dive into the project, there are a few regulatory issues, I guess you could say, that hurdles that have to be overcome. But there's been some, seriously positive momentum on that. I know that you're very outspoken on, the need for a policy change there. What are you seeing, and where do you think investors really should be focusing to finally get that policy shift?
Yeah, so look, I mean, you're right. There's no one that's more out there than me on this topic, and I do speak very regularly and very detailed about it. So there's some other stuff on the internet you can have a look at.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of policy change, we're coming up to an election in about 12 months. In WA, electioneering is well underway. Speaking to both sides of government, what investors should understand is one. WA, you used to be able to mine uranium there. It's only for the last sort of 6 years when one particular government came in that they changed the rules. WA is the world's best mining jurisdiction on every other commodity except uranium. So you've actually got a population which is very comfortable with uranium. And the second thing that's interesting is look, there are pressures coming to bear on the WA mining sector, which were just not there in the last sort of 20 years, frankly, and that is, the nickel and lithium under serious pressure. That is a huge employer in WA, and when there's an argument between ideology and jobs, it's usually jobs that's going to win the day.
Yeah.
So we're now able to run an argument to say, hey, government, you've really got to protect the jobs on the right of your party, as well as help the world decarbonise. WA's got a moral obligation. If we're going to sell iron ore to the world that's used in blast furnaces and creates emissions, hey, why don't we also sell an energy source which is zero carbon? So it's a really exciting time, and as I said, there's a lot going on in that space at the moment.
And it does sound like, I don't want to get to which side are you on, but it does sound like what you're saying is that both sides of the aisle are moving towards being accepting of uranium mining in WA again.
Yeah, look, I wish there were only two sides to the aisle, but there's a splintering, I guess, within the Labor Party. So the Liberal Party generally is pro-uranium, but you can split Labor, right down the middle. The left of the Labor Party are ex-Greenies. They're very left-wing and anti-uranium and anti-nuclear. So their position would be that we shouldn't at all have any involvement in the nuclear value chain whatsoever. The right of the Labor Party are actually pro-uranium, pro-nuclear. So it's not quite as simple as that. And Labor's got a few internal arguments to have. Notably, they're having that argument at the moment with respect to gas export policy in WA, which again was a ban on gas exports was brought in at the same time as the uranium ban. The right of the party is currently arguing with the left. It looks like the right's won that argument, and the gas export ban will be reversed in the next few months. And that's a perfect entree into having the uranium mining ban reversed as well, because their rationale for changing the gas ban is that WA has a moral obligation to sell more gas to Indonesia and India, so they'll burn less
Yeah.
coal to help the world decarbonize. Well, that kind of argument sort of works a lot better for uranium.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's jump into the Yanrey project a little bit. So obviously, you, as you said, it's been a bit of a special situation, but at the same time, the stock wouldn't have rallied nearly as much as it has if you didn't have a really fantastic project that you're more or less ready to go on exploration wise, and can pretty rapidly ramp up once the regulatory hurdles are
Mm.
jumped. Can you kind of talk us through a little bit,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is so exciting about it?
Well, so we put out a scoping study just before Christmas, and to show just how good the economics are, even on a first stage project, which is a small
Mhm.
theoretical development. Being an ISR project, I mean, the IRR is an absolute cracker, and at spot pricing today, the IRR would be over 100%. I mean, it's ridiculous. Um, and that was using only about 17 million pounds of our current 30 million pound JORC resource.
Mhm.
Next thing we've done is put out an additional exploration target. Say on top of the 30 million, we reckon there's another 50 million in and around the surrounding area. Now, what I'm saying to people is, look, that ASX release might have said 50, but read the fine print. We have 22 high value targets within spitting distance of the existing resource. Half of those targets we actually zeroed out just because we didn't have enough historical data to put any tons or grade against it. But assuming some of those come in, it's not an extra 50. I'm saying that, look, we can see 100 million pounds at Yanrey, and that gets it into, world scale, world relevant
Yeah, yeah.
sizes where, as soon as that regulatory regime changes and you start looking across to a see-through valuation compared to Boss Resources, we're a billion-dollar company.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So it basically sounds like what you're saying is you have a fantastic, in the quote unquote worst case scenario, right? You have above 100% IRR, and that's assuming you don't really do much more exploration. But if you really do, if you get stuff ramping up, you start getting some money coming in, you start using that to explore these other potential sites. The sky's the limit is basically what you're saying.
Well, so we did a placement, small placement a couple of weeks ago. We did that at a premium to market and got a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
respect from the market on that. That's given us funding to go drill. So we aren't going to drill out this extra target, 50 million pounds. Who knows how far we'll get on this particular drill campaign, but we'll be drilling for a good chunk of the year. It is cheap drilling because it's a rotary mud type of, and a paleo channel sediment hosted deposit.
Mhm.
So they're only down 100 meters. You can drill all day, all night. It's like not quite like a hot knife through butter, but it's close. So we're drilling a lot, and the thematic here is our thesis, which is shared by our major shareholders. Is it is not a matter of if the WA policy changes; it's a matter of when
Mhm.
it will change back to what it used to be. Um, and when that does happen, well, there are multiple bags on our share price. And so our major shareholders want us to be putting as much money into the ground as we can. And that's what we're doing.
Well, I want to circle back for a second here. You said something that I really think needs to be underlined, especially in this market where you're seeing companies go into administration because they can't even raise funding. And you're saying that you raised a placement at a premium in the exploration space. Sorry, I mean, if we're like, it's kind of in many ways the pre-exploration space too, even though you are drilling. So you were talking before about how you're pounding the pavement. And I guess in this scenario, you really need an executive at the helm who's really pushing the company and is actually not, blowing up in people's faces. And it sounds like you just gave us as much proof as we possibly could want that that's the case. So how did you really like get a premium on this?
Yeah. So look, it's I've been saying for a while that, maybe 5 months ago, we brought on a new major shareholder, a uranium focused family office investor. Family offices are great because they can tend to do stuff that maybe instos can't. And I'd been saying to the market, this family office investor is very supportive of us. They share our vision about change in policy. They started off at 10% and they bought to 15 on market, so they supported us. And then the second piece is, hey, they took a placement at a premium to market, knowing that, we could have gone out and raised a lot more money at a discount, and frankly don't need that amount of money right now because the drill campaign's relatively cheap. And secondly, we've got a lot of oppies that are in the money. They keep converting across and our bank balance keeps going up. So, we decided to look out for the interests of shareholders, manage dilution a little bit. We're still very well funded. And look, that major shareholder, he actually posts on Hot Copper quite regularly. In his words, not mine, he's willing to give us as much money as we need. So, you know, look forward to the continued support. It's just fantastic to have that support and that clarity and consistency of vision.
No, that I mean that's so important, especially in a market like today. Even with uranium being hot, you see so many ASX listed companies that even if they're in the hot commodity space, it's no guarantee of success in funding. So going back to the uranium space and moving out a little bit for a sec, what do you think is really the biggest misunderstanding that investors have about the uranium market as it is today?
Um, Look, I think the fundamental issue on demand versus supply. So what I think people don't realize is that even under today's demand scenario, we can't supply the market through primary production. It has survived on the overproduction from the 60s, 70s, and 80s during the Cold War, and megatons to megawatts and other things. So, right now, even under today's scenario, we could only account for about 75% of the needs. Hey, there's been a triple nuclear pledge happen, right? So there is absolutely no way we can fund what is forecast, and where there's good steps for implementation too. I mean, a lot of people are pushing forward with new nuclear. And you combine that with the fact that, look, it is pretty hard to bring on new tons in uranium. There are extra regulatory hurdles. You do want to be in jurisdictions that are pro-mining. And I'd say for Australia and for Western Australia has everything right in its mining jurisdiction and in its workforce and its logistical and support services for mining. The only thing it doesn't have right now is an ability to mine, and that will change. I'd note that we're able to explore, we're able to continue developing the project, doing feasibility studies, and we will do that. So we're not constrained, but we will need a change in policy in the next couple of years. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, watch this space. It's an exciting time.
I got to tell you, I think that was a fantastic summary. I think that we're gonna end it there, but it sounds very exciting. You've had a massive monster run with what seems to be and that's even before this exciting drill campaign that you're talking about now. So it's definitely one at the bare minimum that needs to be on investors' watch list from the sounds of it.
Mate, keep us on your watch list. There is more good news to come, and some really good catalysts with that drill rig going out spinning. It's going to be a good 6 months for Cauldron.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for coming on the podcast, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning into the disclaimer. Investing money into capital markets involves risk and could result in losing money. The people on this podcast express their own views and may or may not have been paid to appear. Only you can determine if a particular investment is right for your portfolio. Always do your own research before buying or selling any security or investment. Remember, past performance is no guarantee of future results. One should always view any investment with their own personal risk tolerance, liquidity, tax situation, or anything else pertinent in mind. No person on or related to this podcast was making any offer or solicitation.